he took on the form of a man. Ready for this? No reputation. In other words, he started right where you started. How did he get his reputation? By staying focused.
Linear graph. Basically, you can do this. You can do this combined. You can do this combined. And for today, I will not be sharing my screen because I have issues with it. Not actually issues with the screen, but how I can draw such graphs. It will be hard to draw graphs, so that is one challenge we have in online classes, in online teaching. Such topics, such as graphs, it will be hard for one to teach with this laptop or computer. So please bear with me. I'll be giving you the directions. You can ask questions, but make sure you're fast enough so that you can be able to cover what is supposed. So I'll be giving you directions on how you can plot these graphs, and then you yourselves, you're the one to plot the graphs. But I will be giving you how to do that. And then if you have any question while you're plotting, let me know so that I can assist you. So from there, we'll start. We say that a linear equation, when you plot the graph of a linear equation, turn off your mic. When you plot the graph of a linear equation, uh, you get a straight line. Basically, the graph of a linear equation is a line. And again, I say, I teach graph when you are drawing a linear equation. When you're drawing a linear equation graph, when you're drawing a linear, you should mark your graph. You should mark your line. You should state or rather what that line is portraying. So you must label the line with the equation. So we'll start. We'll start by drawing a graph. Rather, let me mention knowledge from high school knowledge. Graphs. When we are drawing graphs, we talked about the intersections. So when we talk about the gradient basically also call it the slope. So this is of the vertical distance divided by the horizontal distance. So in form of a graph, when will be now the actual graphs, you'll find that when you're calculating the gradient, you'll have y1 minus y2. You divide that by x1 minus x2. So that's how we'll be. So we can start with a graph. We can start with a graph. Those of us who have a ruler, those of us graph books, you can try drawing a graph. Or if you don't have any, just you can try. You can try maybe accurate enough. You can try seeing if you'll be accurate enough. But maybe the problem was on the side. I didn't inform you quite early. But sometimes you must have these things. Maybe the problem is on the side. I didn't inform you quite early for you to have this thing. So you see if you get the dimensions correct. So I want you to having the coordinates, the coordinates of a point A, the coordinate will be 0 and 3, that is for x and y. Our point A will be 0 and 3. The coordinates of our point B, will be 2 and 9 and 9.
So I do now see no choice.
You can draw a graph on that. You can draw a graph using those coordinates.
Coordinates za hii mwalimu umesema ni
3. A 0 3 and B is 2 9. And when you are writing the coordinates, separate them with the comma. For A, the x will be 0, the y, and for B, x will be 2, y will be 9. Again, I say, when you're using the graph book, square, that tiny square, when you're in the ruler, it represents 0.1 of a centimeter. 0 centimeter. So for those of us who don't have graph books, when you are drawing your graphs using the rule books or square books, 1 centimeter on the ruler, when you measure 1 centimeter, you put it in your books, you can use that 1 centimeter in your graph books. It will be it is the same as in your graph books. 10 small squares in your graph books represent 1 centimeter on the ruler. So I believe it will be easy for you to draw given such information. Basically, when you're plotting such a graph, just pick the point 0, 3. When x is 0, y is graph on your graph. So you must have a point on the y-axis, the point on the y-axis, 3 in the y-axis at point 3, and the next point is on the first quadrant, the point where 2, the point where on x-axis and on the y-axis, is 9. So you should have a point inside the first quadrant, a point 2, 9, a point where and 2 on the x-axis and y and 9 on the y-axis meet. And then from there, from the 2 points, join those 2 points using a to form a straight line. Between those 2 points to form a straight line, a ruler. When you finish on that, it's just a good practice for you to label the lines. In this case, it may not be necessary, but it's just a good practice to label the line. So you can for this case, it's not a must because you are not given an equation for that. You're not given an equation for that. So it as it is. I believe we are all through. So calculating the gradient, we find that basically the gradient, we have called it the slope, and the gradient, whatever I said earlier was a bit wrong. When you calculate, take y2 minus y1, that is, y2 minus y1 is divided by x2 minus x1. You can talk of, when you're calculating the gradient, you can talk of 9, you subtract 3, 9 minus 3, you divide that by 2, 2 minus 0. You divide that by 2 minus 0. Maybe I can share my screen for such situation. When drawing a graph, I will not do it. I will not be able to do it. I believe everybody can see. I'm talking of 9 minus 3. 9 minus 3. In your book, don't write it at the books. In your books, have it this way. 9 minus 3. You divide that by 2 minus 0. Have it as this in your books. 9 minus 3 by 2 minus 0. This is how we'll be calculating our gradient. So take note of that. Again, I will not be able to draw the graphs, so this is how we'll be calculating. The few points that I need to clarify, I'll be clarifying them in this way. Will give you 9 minus 3 will give you a 6, and then the other one, don't write it this way in your exercise books. Don't write it this way. Instead of this, or rather, instead of me drawing this line, a straight line here, I'll symbolize division. Let it remain as a straight line, just the way we in other areas. Let it remain a straight line. This I'll just use it so that I avoid drawing this line each and every time. So I'll use this for my division. It's divided by 2, and your answer will be 3. So this 3 will be the gradient. This 3 will be the gradient. That's how we calculate the gradient. Say the gradient is change in the y coordinates, then divide that by the corresponding change in the x coordinates. So that will be, we're talking of the gradient given by change in y coordinates divide that in x coordinates. This we're talking about this is what we are talking about. And we're calculating the gradient by the change in the y coordinates. You divide it by the corresponding change in the x coordinates, and that is given by y2 minus y1 divided by x1. So this is how you calculate your gradient. Basically, it's just in high school in graphs. So this is it: y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, and when we are to y1, x2, and x1, it's just basically the points of y2, the x and y values, x and y values of y1. We pick and again the x and y values of x2 and the x and y values of x1. So that is what we will be using the gradient. That is what we will be using to calculate the gradient. For those of us who came in late, the topic we are gradients and functions, and we'll be looking at drawing graphs, calculating the gradients, and identifying the intercepts. Identifying the intercepts. So look at another example of calculating the gradient. So you can draw a graph. Point P. You have a point P. Let me share my screen. Point P. With the coordinates. Have a point P with the coordinates -3, 3. Then you have another point Q with the coordinates one and one, one, one. So of this, draw a graph using these coordinates Then from the graph, the gradient of that line. Draw a graph using these coordinates, gradient of the line PQ. To find the line PQ. This will be a second example. This will be a plot a graph using and then find the gradient of the line PQ.
To plot.
Yes, you should plot this graph using the coordinates P, 3, -3, and 3. The coordinates are 1 and 1. And when you're given coordinates, this basically means the x value of point P is -3, and the y value of point P, the x value of Q is 1, and the y value of 1. That's the interpretation of this. Whoever asked that question, unless you want to ask another question. Let's try being a little bit fast, that you can finish what was intended fast.
Teacher, hizo lines
Yes,
zinafaa zikuwe
we
straight
must be
zote.
straight. We said in class before the lockdown, when we are looking at simultaneous equations, we said simultaneous equations are two. And when we talked about linear equations, we said that linear equations are equations. So what we are dealing with are linear equations, and the graphs of linear equations should be straight lines. So all the lines should be straight. Join join any 2 points, or if your graph has more than 2 points, they should be a straight line, one straight line. It should not have breaks in between one straight line. Ansi yako umepatikiwa?
Nimemaliza. Negative 1
Okay.
and negative half 1/2.
Maliza.
Yes, your answer is
The same. Negative 1/2.
good. So I believe that time is enough. The answer, the gradient should be negative 2, negative 1/2. That is changing the y coordinates. You divide it by the x coordinates. Use, to start with, when you subtract p from those in q, that it is 1 minus 3, 1 minus 3. So negative 2 divided by 4, that is the same as negative a half. If you choose other way, you have 3 minus 1, you divide it by negative 3 minus 1, that will be 2, you divide it, you get the same answer, which is negative a half.
Ukiachia negative 0.5.
Ni sawa pia.
Fit.
The answer as a decimal, it's okay.
Fit.
So you can move is there any
Hebu
question?
rudia, sijaelewa hiyo stuff manze, nimechelewa class, hebu nirudie hiyo nini.
Let me share my screen. I will not be able to draw the graphs, so the graphs I need to draw. First for the point P is negative 3. The second point for point Q is 1 and 1. Plot a graph using these points. Plot a graph using Q, and then of the line PQ. Find the gradient of the line. Plotting the graph is pick these points, put them on your graph for the x and y. Another point for the x and y values, put them on your graph. Join them using a straight line. And then from there, the gradient is the grade these 2 points, and then use this formula. Use this formula in your gradient. Basically, y2 minus y1, you divide it by x2 minus x1. That will be 1 minus 3. Just use it as that. There are 1 and 3. So you can say 1 minus 3, negative 2, and then 1 minus 3. So that will give you 4. And that is the same as 2 divided by 4, and that will be half. So the next example is the question asks find the gradient line y equal to 3x plus 2. Find the gradient y equals 3x plus 2. Let me on this something on this. Given such a question, you get in two ways. You can opt to do in two ways. You have not been told to plot a graph, this equation. So the first, so when you are such a question, when you're trying to solve, you can either choose to plot a graph, and then from you pick 2 points on this line, find the gradient from there. If not that, you can just or rather pick one value of x, find the corresponding value. So have your first coordinate, another value of x, so that you can have the corresponding, and then you'll have the second coordinate. I'm saying in such a question, you have not been told to plot a graph. There are two ways of doing such a question. There are two ways of doing such a question. The first one, you can either plot a graph of that, but it will be a repetition of what I will explain as the second step, or the second option. The second way you can do such a question is pick one value of x. Let's choose 2 of x. We have done graphs in the past in class. We did tulifanya maswali when we are drawing graphs. You are picking x and then y. We are drawing a table of x and y. We drew such a table. In class, we were drawing such a table, and then value of x, and then finding the corresponding value of y, having x, finding the corresponding value of y. So this is a second way you can do that question. But instead of having many values of y, when you're calculating the gradient, we only need 2 points. We only need 2 points, as we have seen before. When you're calculating the gradient, we only need to be. We need to have a change in y. We divide it by a change in x of the 2. So in finding our first coordinates, at our x value, we can say our x value. We can choose to pick our x0, and in these values you can use any values. You'll find that one may choose to use x as 0, another person may choose to use x, another person may choose to use x as 100. So you can use you want. But take note, when you're using large values, you just default to the y also large, so that's the downside of that. You can just pick values near zero, maybe the negative values, some negative values close to 0. For me, I'll choose to use x. I say x is 0. When I pick x to be 0, x value to be 0, so y, we can, let's call our point a first state, and we have said point A will be 0. So let's find the y value of, so the y value will be y equal to 3 You have said x is 0 plus 2. So this is how, and y value will be 3. You multiply by 0, that's a 0, and then you will get 2. So our first of our point A will be 0 for the x value will be a 2. Again, our second point, point B, 0. You cannot use 0 again. Let's say a second value. Let's pick a point 1 as our x value. So what will be y value? So y will be multiplied by 1. X is 1 here. X is 1. Add 2. Add 2. 3 multiplied by 1 is a 3 plus 2, 5. So here the y value will be 5. So the point of, when you are calculating the gradient again, you have said you must have 2 points. You must have 2 points because there must be a change in x. So in point of this, calculating the gradient here will be given by changing y. We can have 5 minus 2, 5 minus 2 by that, by the change in x. You divide that by the change in x. And minus 0. This will give you 3. Take apart, 5 minus 3 is 3. 1 minus 0 is 1. And 3, when you divide, it will give you 3. 3 by 1, it will give you 3. So that's how you do such a question. Again, when you are calculating the gradient, you have the change in y, you divide it by the change in x. And the format in which you are writing the gradient. When you pick to start with this, when you pick to start with the coordinates of v, make sure the y values come first. Make sure the y value comes first. For the y, for the y, the 5 here should come first. Here, the 1 should be here. Don't go and say 5 minus 2 is 2 for the change in x, for the change in y. And when you come to the change in x, you see 0, and then you go to, make sure whatever you choose, the coordinate you choose to work with in calculating this gradient, the change, that coordinate should come first, or rather that point, the coordinates should come first. Here we have 5 and 1. Don't enter when you are here. Let's say minus 2. For the change in x, don't say 0 minus 1. It will give you answer. So take note of that. Is there any question up to that point? Is there any question up to that point? Before we continue, let me comment something else. For the class 1A4 and 1A5, for the class 1A4 and 1A5, and probably maybe 183. If your teacher gives you any assignment, just make sure you do your assignments. Just make sure you do your assignments, because it may cost you so much when you don't do your assignments. So just make sure you do your assignments. Of the class 104 and 105, take note of the deadlines. Take note of the deadlines. Maybe it won't be marked. It won't be marked, or it will be penalized if marked. Take note of the deadlines. Say after each lesson, even I believe we agreed that in class, after April, there will be something to boost your grades. The entire reason why I'm giving you the assignments. So just take note on that. If you don't do your assignment, the consequences, this may be the. Let's just, you can look, I've shared my screen. Let me explain something about not doing the assignments. Not doing the assignments. Let's take an instance. On your cut, let's 20 out of 30. Spot 20 out of 30 in your cut. And then the assignment, in the assignment, let's say the total marks for your assignments is 50. You didn't do any assignment. When you don't, that will result to a zero. That will result to a zero. So, as the repercussion of not doing, when you, this cut and converted out of 30 will be converted out of 30. This will be, you add the got in your cut, the total marks you got in your assignment. So here it will be 20 over the total marks, the combination of the total marks from the cut set, that is 80, and then this convert it out of 30. That basically means 20 out of 80 you multiply. And when you do this on your calculators, when you do this will give you, let's see, this will give you 7.5. This will give you 7.5. You don't do any assignment. And your cut 20, the resulting mark will be 7.5. And this a downfall. This will be fall, because kama hizi assignment hazingepeanwa, at least you will have scored 20 out of 30. But because these assignments have been given, and you have them, you will find that alone it will be 20. But because you have not done assignment, this 20 will water down up to 7.5. So this is a negative of 12.5. So you have lost around 13 marks on your assignment. And then when it may not be hard for you to recover those marks. So just make sure you do all the assignments, because this is the repercussion of it. When you choose to not do, marks zako lazima zitapungua. Your marks lazima zitapungua, and maybe to the exam it may be a problem. So just make sure you are doing your assignments. Kama umepewa assignment, fanya. Let that not what is ikupite. So that's just clarify. Your assignment fanya yote, wacha isikupite. Class 1A4 and 1A5 in Google Classroom. Again, I believe we agreed every class will be so always click on your Google Classroom, do the assignment given there. And I said every class will be posting an assignment there. So from when we started, there are assignments. Each session kumekuwa na assignment. So look on that. The other assignments, they may not necessarily come from what we'll be looking at that day. In class, I told you the assignment can come from anywhere. So we agreed on new reading. I can pick to give you a question from any point since we started. So just look. So you can continue from there. The next thing I want us to is the equation of a line. Equation of a line given 2 points. Basically, this is you have been given points, or rather 2 coordinates, and you are being told to form an equation from that. You form an equation from given 2 points. From given 2 points, you are told to form an equation from that. So we'll start by, I'll give you the 2 points. Start by an example. My work today is not organized. Basically, it's because I cannot be able to draw the graphs. I hope because that will be more easier. But for now, please bear with me. I'm talking about equation. Equations of a line. So example, or a question is, and the question asks, find the equation of the line passing A 1, 3 and point B 2, 8. Line passing through the points A 1, 3 and B 2, 8. So how to do this? How to do such a question? I hope for those copying the question down have done it. So the solution to that question first step is to calculate the gradient of that. That will be given by the y coordinates, you divide it by the x coordinates. So here we can talk about 8 minus 3, divide that by 2 minus 1. 8 minus 3 by 2 minus 1. And this should give you 5. When you do your division correctly, upper part 8 minus 3 is 5, 2 minus 1, 5 divided by 1 is 5. First step is calculation. You have the gradient as 5. The next step is forming the equation. And when you're forming the equation, you just need 1 point of this line. You just need 1 point of this line. You can either choose to work with A or with point B. Any point you pick to work with, that's okay. If we choose to work with point A, this will be how you calculate, or rather you find, you form the equation of that line. If you choose to work with point A, where the point at the coordinates of that point A at 1 and 3, this is how you do it. Write your y value. It's the same as you did the coordinates. Instead of having maybe a point x and y value, we have the actual. We write so this is how you do it. You have y. Say we work with A. This is y. The same way we do, rather we find the gradient. But now for the next for our other point, we choose with x and y. Instead of having 2 points, b, just pick 1 point, other point x and y. Have the value of x and y. What I'm saying is, have point A, that is 1, 1, 3. Then we have another having the coordinates x and y. Having the coordinates x and y. So we'll use these 2 points to calculate the gradient. We are not actually calculating the gradient, it will remain the way it is. It is the equation of a new line which we are trying to form. So here we have x minus 1 is equal to 5, the gradient which we had before. Basically, form another having the coordinates x and y. Write that as if you are trying to let the gradient equate this to the gradient. So from here, in order to remove this denominator, you have to multiply both sides by x minus 1. Multiply this side by x, also multiply this side by x minus 1. Or rather, how else may you choose to call it? You cross multiply these two, cross multiply two. This whole thing, in other words, you can choose to multiply the left hand side with x minus 1, multiply the x minus 1, so that you can remove this denominator from that part. So this part, when you choose to multiply on this x minus 1, you cancel it out and you will be left with y minus 3. And on the right hand side, multiply that by x minus 1. Here we are multiplying both sides as 1 so that you can eliminate this. You can eliminate that. What that means is this. You have x minus 1. If you multiply this side by x minus 1, this and this will cancel out. This and this, and you remain with y minus 3. Then also multiply the right hand side by x. That is what I'm talking about. So that the resulting equation will be the one highlighted. Then from there, you can expand this y minus 3 equal to minus 5. This will be the same as y. Equal to have y on one side, or also you can choose unknowns on one side and the values without the unknowns on one side. Basically depends on how you choose x minus 5 plus equal to 5 minus 2. So this should be your answer. This is your answer. So that is how you do it. You do such. Is there any question on that? Any question on that? Then I can give you.
Excuse me, sir. What if you leave the answer as 5x minus 2 is equals to 2? 5x minus
That's okay.
y is equals to 2.
That's okay. Then you can have this told mine, the mic is on, please turn it off unless you want to ask a question. To determine the equation, of a line with gradient 3 passing through the point and determine the equation of a line 3 passing through 1, 5. Basically, that question is asking you to find the equation that line. You have been given the degree, and you have been given 1 point of that line as 1. So you can try doing that. If you're through, you can give me your answer.
Nimepata.
Yes, answer yako ni
Y is equals to 3x plus
yeah,
2.
that's good. One question.
Nimepata
Yes,
y is equals to 3.
okay, that's good.
Y minus 2 is equals to 3x.
That's okay. Good. I believe most of us will get your answers as y. Let me read the answer as I have it here. But if I've told you it's correct, it's basically correct. So my answer is y equals plus 2. Again, it depends on how you write your answer. You should have the y value, the x value. The answer also can be 3x to negative 2. Again, there are many answers to an equation. You can twist your the way you want, but basically it should be correct signs you use on the values. So that is the answer. X plus 2, y is equal to 3x. That is the answer. From there, we can look at linear equations. Basic linear equation. We have been looking at linear equation, but let's use the formula y equal to mx plus c. Y mx. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is we can express a linear equation in the form of y equal to mx plus c. Mx plus c, and that is what we have here. Maybe the first answer we got is this one here, y equal to 5x minus 2. Such an equation has the form of y equal to mx here has in the form of y equal to m. That is what we're talking of. So we can also take a look at another equation. Let's say you have been given 4x plus 3y equal to negative 8. 4x x plus 3y negative 8. And you have been told to express the form of y equal to mx plus c. Basically, how to do this is this equation, write this equation in this form, that y on your left side, on your left hand side, and then the other values on your right hand side. So to convert this equation to be in this form, y equal to c, we'll do it this way. You want to be left with y in your left hand side. So here by saying 3y equal to, we take the 4x to the other side. This will be negative 4x, and then we have negative 8. Have that. So for this side, we have a y. For this side, to remain with y. We want to have a y on this side, both sides by 3. We divide both sides by 3. And again, I said for me, use this side, but the normal division, or how we write in our books in class, the normal division have this horizontal straight line, make more sense. You should not, but for me, I just use this basic division. So we divide both sides by 3. Also, we divide it by 3. We divide this side by 3. So we'll be left with y, that side, equal to have negative 4x here, minus 8. We divide by 3. But when this equation is in this form, this part, the mx plus c part, it will not really go well with this. What I'm telling you, you have negative 4x minus 8 I really wish here we said we divide both. This is what I'm talking of. But you'll find that when you have written this right hand side, it may be hard for you to interpret what mx is hand side and what c is on this. So this equation can also be written as equal to y equal to negative 4. Here we just divide each individual value by each individual value by these 3. So this will give us, divide this the other one was negative 8. Divide this by 3. So this is how this equation, the way you write that equation, y equal to negative 4x by 3 minus 8 to divide by 3. And this you will find it will be easier to eat the y is equal to mx plus c, because you have your y there, you have your mx here, the negative 4, that is your mx, and then you have the c. The c is this part, the negative 3, the negative 8 over 3. So the m, because you have said the mx, it should be lowercase, the mx is negative 4, negative 4 over 3x. Basically, I'm just trying to avoid having these lines, but the m is 4 over 3, that's the mx. It's basically the same. Let this form not confuse you. Again, I've told you, don't use separator. Don't use this. Don't confuse you. Just write it as this way. So the mx is negative 4 to divide, negative 4x to divide by 3. So the m will be over 3, because this x is this x, or rather, if you divide both sides by x, this x and the m will be left with as negative 4 over 3. Then for the c will be the last part, this other part, the negative 8 divided by 3. This will be the c of that equation. C. And also you can note that this c are constants, they are constants, the m and the c are constants and constants. And when you plot this on a graph, you'll find that c represents the y-intercept, c represents intercept. In the equation y mx plus c, in the equation y equal to c represents the y-intercept, represents the slope, or what, gradient. M is the slope of the gradient. T is the y-intercept. You should take this down, or rather note this. It will help you in drawing your graphs of gradients. C is the y-intercept. M is what we call slope. Is there any question on that? Okay, and continue. You can note this down. Just a question, see if you have understood. Have 2y equal to x plus 6. 2y equal to x plus 6. I'll need you to give me the y. I'll need you to give me the value of c. But first, we can talk of this question. Write following equation. of y plus c, mx plus c. Let this be the question in the form of y plus c, and the given equation is this: 2y equal to x plus 6.
Nimepata.
Yes? Answer.
2x over 2 plus 3.
Okay, that's very good. Yes?
Y is equals to half x plus 3.
That's very good. So with that, I believe, let me be understood. Let me assume everybody has understood. Basically, I have said have y on one side because the formula is telling you y equal to mx plus c. Always take note of the instructions carefully. So the formula you are being asked, you write it to the form y equal to. So you must have y on one side, the rest on the other side. Yes.
Can you repeat kiasi nilikuwa nimetoka tu kidogo?
You are being told write the following equation equal to mx plus c. So given this equation, given that equation, you must have y on the left hand side on its own. Here inafaa kubaki na y peke yake, and on this right hand side you should have the rest as c. And for you to have y here, divide this side by 2. You should divide this left hand for you to be left with the y, and also divide the right hand side by 2. Basically, when you're dividing this right hand side by 2, it will be able to divide each individual by 2. So here, this y divided by 2. So that's how you do it. We have talked about it. So we can also try it before we look at the next thing. The question is the same.
Wait.
Yes.
Sasa umesema answer itabaki aje?
Answer yako inafaa kuwa in the form of this form. You have y peke yake, lazima left hand side y peke yake, side inafaa you should have this mx plus c. Basic answer is y equal to half x can also be y equal to, then an answer x over 2 plus 2 mean the same thing. Hii hapa na hii hapa, it's just the same. X over 2 is the same thing. So these two are the solutions to that question. Writing this equation in the form of y equal to mx, because here we have our y, that we have our mx, that, and then we have our c as 3. Our c as 3. So that is how we do it. Divide by 2. You divide this side by 2 for you to be left with the y by 2. So that's how we do it. These are the solutions to that question. We can also have another question. We try doing this. 3y minus 7 equal to 0. I've been given this question here. Write the following equation in the form of y equal to mx plus c. Also, I'll need you to do gradient Yeah. Let me create that line. Also have the gradient and y-intercept.
Y
Write
is
the following. Yes.
equals to 2x minus, the gradient is 2.
Yes.
And the y-intercept is negative 7/3.
Very good.
Mepata.
Yes.
Y is equals to 2x minus 7/3.
Yes.
2
Yes.
and y-intercept is negative 7/3.
Okay. That's good. So here, for the rest of us, I believe if we have two working it out, the rest can do it. Rather, I can explain it again. When you're told to write sum of y equal to mx plus c, again I repeat, you must write it in this form. So you must have y on one side, and the rest of the values should go on the other side. So this should be equal to 6x minus 7. Then from there, both sides by 3, divide this side by 3, divide this side by 3. But rather, divide this, divide everything else on this side, each individual value by 3. What I'm trying to say. We're left with y equal to, if you divide 6, you'll be left with 2x. Sorry, 2x. When you divide negative 7, rather than just 7 and 3. So the gradient, let's say gradient is m, the m represents, so our gradient here, the c represents the y-intercept, but when you have here in the equation, pick the c, let the y-intercept be the whole of that. Rather, this plus c, that it doesn't confuse you, I believe even more, the plus c just represents this, just represents that. But in other terms, the simplest way for you to avoid any errors, put you on a certain equation. When you want to find the value of c, the value of c is 7/3, but also include this negative side will be included if your equation has a negative. So intercept yako hapa itakuwa negative 7. It will not be 7/3. 7/3 is not the y-intercept. The y-intercept 7/3. So take note of that sign. Take note of this negative sign. So from there,
I have a question.
yes.
Kwa graph,
Yes.
how the y-intercept kwa graph, wakati wa kuchora graph?
Hapo ndio nataka kwenda sahi. Hapo ndio nataka kwenda sahi. We'll be looking at that right away.
I have a question.
Yes.
Umeandika kama mixed fraction but they are 7/3.
Iko sawa.
Another question.
Yes.
Unaweza pewa the equation.
Yes. Uliza. Uliza tu, ama hiyo ndio swali yako, kama unaweza pewa equation nyingine. No, you'll not be asked to find the points. You'll you'll be asked to draw the graph of that equation. The graph of that equation. So basically, hauwezi pewa equation alafu hauwezi pewa equation alafu ambiwe to find the coordinates. Sasa the question is what of the graph, you must have those coordinates. So that is how it can be asked.
Okay.
So let's go straight drawing the graph. Or maybe you can just draw a graph on this. Let's use this equation to plot a graph. And when you are plotting a graph of this equation, you will find that the graph must pass through the point -3. The graph must pass through the -7/3. So here, when you plot this equation, you'll find that the first step you have said, or rather, you'll find 2 points. You'll find 2 points where your graph will go through. That is, we pick x. You see, when x is 0 point, have point A, have point B. When you're drawing, when you are plotting a graph of a certain equation, you must have 2 points. 2 points you come and join them using a straight line. So this is what I mean. You must have 2 points. Should have the coordinates of x. You should have the coordinates of y. So if you choose to have a first point, you say our first point, the coordinates of x is 0. Corresponding value of the coordinates of y. So you are saying y will be given by, this is for the first point, your x is 0, when x is 0, into x equal to be 0 minus over 3. So our y value will be 2 multiplied by 0, it's a 0, 0 minus 7 over 3, and -7 over 3. Then we look for the next point. Let's say our y value is 1. Let's pick our y value as 1. Our x value as 1. Our x value as 1. So the corresponding y equal to 2. Multiply this by 1. Then 7, 3. So from your calculators, this will be 2 minus 7 over 3. 2 minus 7 over 3. I think that will be negative a third. I'm not wrong. Okay. Is it negative 1 over 3?
Yes.
2 minus, okay. So value, b value as 3. So using these 2 points, now plot a graph of this equation. Using now we will plot a graph for equation. And let me maybe explain something to that. And also you can do this in a free time. You just plot a graph that time. When you're plotting this graph, we have said the y-intercept. We have said the y-intercept is negative 7 over 3. Plotting this graph, you will find that this line will pass through that point, the negative 7 over 3 on your y-axis. On your y-axis, the graph will pass through that point. The graph will pass through that way. This is your graph. Let's say this is your graph. You have negative 7 over y-intercept. On your graph, you'll find that that line will pass through the point negative 7 over 3. Basically, that is 2.3. Your line will pass through that point negative 2, which is what I'm talking about. So the y-intercept here, your line, where your line cuts through the y-axis. Where your line is mid, that represents the intercept. This C, that represents the y-intercept. I believe naeleweka ukisema hivyo. I believe I'm being understood. So
Yes.
that point where that line, maybe I can change the color of this. I don't know which color is quite visible. This point where this line, the line y equal to minus 7 over 3, cuts the y-axis. That is what we call, and you'll find that when you draw this graph, this line will cut the y-axis, this exact point. If you are accurate enough, you'll find that this line cuts the y-axis at this point. So the y-intercept is the point where your line cuts the y-axis. That's what we call the y-intercept. We can also have the x-intercept. We can also have the x. Can we look at that? You'll draw this graph at your own free time. Basically, what is remaining here is just drawing the points. Some of you is just draw the graph. Sometimes you may have x-intercept. You may have x-intercept, and you'll find that it may be the point where a line cuts through the x-axis. Just a moment on that. I will elaborate. I'm just looking for a question that will explain that in a more simpler way. Or let me explain it in this way, and then the remaining part you can try finding out what I was talking about is the correct thing. We can talk of if a line passes through the points A and 0, and another point B, if a line passes through these 2 points, A, B, the first point for that first point is the second point, 0 and B, then A and B on the x-intercept and y-intercept, that is respectively. So such a line, the equation of this line will be given by A plus y divided by B. This will be equal to 1. You can just write this down. You can just write that down. Basically, that is the general such an equation. And I think this will confuse you even more because I'm really sure that you may encounter this in exams. Let's just leave it at that. This will confuse you. Just basically have the knowledge, rather what you have covered. Let's just deal with that. When we talk about this, it may confuse you even more. But we all did this in high school. Tulisoma hii in high school in Form 2. Tulisoma hii in Form 2. But for now, let's not look at that because we'll circle back to what we have covered. So let's just leave that one. So let's just work with this, rather what we have learned. And again, these graphs, I'd rather we would have done it in class, but because we don't have any otherwise work it this way. Ingekuwa class session, I think ingekuwa rahisi sana kueleweka and explanation will be thick. I'll use that one. I may be allowed to use that one. So cope in the situations as they are. Is there any question up to there? Is there any question? Penye hujaelewa tukueleze, or rather explain it to you. Is there any question? Okay, so if there's no question, I repeat what I said before. For the cards, for the assignments, make sure you do them. Kwa kufanya assignments, just know itakuwa disadvantage for you because your grade lazima zitashuka chini. But if you choose not to do your assignment, just make sure the exam umeifanya vizuri. The exam you have done it the right way, ilo ama supplementary yoyote. And then just make sure you have done your assignments to avoid that. But kama utaki kufanya assignments ni sawa pia. If the exam maybe it happens that you don't do well, if it happens that you don't do well, it will be ni shida utakuwa umejiwekea wewe mwenyewe, because basically kama utaki kufanya assignment ikiwa online, that's another option, kufanikia physical, but just know utaifanya wengine wakiwa wameenda mbele. You may be left behind and the others proceed forward. So if you choose not to do it online, that's your problem. So just make sure you do your assignments, you do your cards, na ufanye exam. Yes.
Ni vizuri sana ukileta assignment after the due date. Kama ni Monday ulete Tuesday, kuna harm.
Yes. Inaweza kosa kumark kazi yako or penalize you for submitting late. But I believe jina yako si I don't have a student with that name. I believe you are in 1A3 and they said 1A3 for the class 1A3 mwalimu wenu atawapea assignment zenu. So you'll deal with her, Madam Elizabeth. So yeye ndio atawapea assignment zenyu. For my assignment zangu, it's only for class 1A4 and 1A5 only. So for 1A3 it is Madam Elizabeth who will give you your assignments. Iko sawa? Hiram, is that okay? Hiyo nataka tu class 1A4 na 1A5 zangu peke yangu. 1A4 na 1A5 peke yake. 1A3 hiyo Madam Elizabeth atawapea assignment zenu. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sawa.
Excuse.
Yes.
Mwalimu saka mimi.
Yes.
Mimi as in sina as in kwa dashboard ya Google Class.
Yes.
Sina class ya maths. So like hadi sijatuma assignment but nishafanya but sina class.
Nilitumia class rep link. So ask the class rep about that link. Nilimtumia link yote ya the maths class na hiyo class nyingine nilimtumia. So ask her about that link. Iko sawa?
Sawa.
Exam sina the correct information. So exam may or may not be online. I don't have the correct information. Hiyo mtaambiwa baadaye, so I don't know about exam vile itafanyika. John Mosioki, kama wewe si wa class 1A4 or 1A5, usishughulike na story na assignment. Kama wewe ni wa class 1A3, Madam Elizabeth she will give you your assignments. If that is kama atawapatia. It's the teacher to decide kama atawapatia assignment ama hatawapatia. So John Mosioki, if you are in class 1A3, liaise with Madam Elizabeth.
Still have a question.
Yes.
I'm in 1A3.
Yes.
Yeah, niko nauliza na mtu 1A3 si tukifanya bado mtu anataka kujua kama ako correct ama ako wrong, you can just mark for us.
Yeah, hiyo sasa juu sina classroom yenu. Unless unipatia answer yako, send me through WhatsApp. Unless you do that ili answer ni correct or I give you the correct answer, kwa sawa pia.
Okay.
So it's quite okay. So wacha kama ni swali wacha nitaforwardia your class rep and then class rep will forward you the questions.
Okay.
Then if you want to confirm the answer, unaweza ni WhatsApp and then I will reply to you. Even for the rest, 1A4 and 1A5, but for 1A4 and 1A5, sitawapatia answer, deadline is over. So that is how we'll do it. But I believe nikiwapatia answer, because you might go ahead and share it to the rest, hii itakuwa shida kidogo. So because the class 1A3 wanataka hizo maswali pia, the 1A3 wanataka hizo maswali pia, make sure by the end of today umesubmit assignment yako ya maths ni 2 questions for last week, so that anybody in class 1A3 mwenye atataka answer nisimpatie answer alafu uende ukopi alafu niletee whatever somebody in 1A3 amefanya, like the copied work. So 1A4 and 1A5, make sure you have submitted your assignment by end of today. I can also help those in 1A3. So make sure you have submitted your work by the end of today. Again, it's a deadline ilishapita, so sijui vile itakuwa, but make sure you have submitted your work. Maswali mbili za last week, so that I can also help our friends in 1A3. So with that, I believe we can call it a day or a successful lesson. I believe from my ability and you have understood. So with that, I can call it a day in the class. Kama uko willing kufanyia assignment from another class, Quirino, again I've said it's quite okay. Ukifanya nitumie tu working yako and then I'll correct you. Then I'll send the questions to the class rep 1A3 and then he can forward it to the rest. Again 1A4 na 1A5 kazi yako by the end of today. Otherwise itakuwa zero, so that I can also help alafu pia juu deadline imepita. So with that, have a nice morning.
You too.
You too.
Wase nani amemaliza assignment ya OS? Mimi hata sielewi hiyo kazi ni gani.
Vanessa sasa.
Poa sana.
Sikuja inbox.